Hey, there's no shame in trying things that people ain't never tried before.
Absolver was refreshing. I rarely spend over $20 on games anymore, but I spent 30 on Absolver, took a plunge, and was pleasantly surprised. The first thing you'll hear is it lacks content. Now, depending on how you play and how you weigh value, that's either very right or very wrong. For me, it was somewhere in between. Finishing the PvE content alone took me about 8 hours. Then a friend picked it up and we co-opted the entire thing in 4. Now, these didn't include the boss's final forms. This was strictly solo and cooperative PvE content. So if that's what you're looking for, Absolver is certainly not for you. PvP is at this game's core. However, if you are interested in PvP, you could be playing this game for months. The skill ceiling, man, it's very high. And not only is the PvP fun and challenging to get better in, but as you do, you also unlock more PvE content. Each boss has 3 phases, unlocked as you rank up in PvP. As long as you don't mind competing in combat trials, the organized PvP, Absolver just keeps on giving. But how does it work? How does Absolver function? We'll start with structure. The world is broken up into a few areas with no loading screens bar 1, filled with enemies and bosses. This is the PvE content. You'll work your way through these areas, through these enemies, through these bosses, learning moves and collecting gear as you go, all preparing yourself for the PvP afterwards. You'll randomly run across players with whom you can cooperate or fight. It makes for some interesting encounters. You know, you'll be scuffling and tuffling with some boys, and then a stunning lass will run up with a sword and cut you ear to ear as they do. And then you'll respawn at an altar and meet a chubby boy, Cult, and then you guys will team up and rip her fucking lungs out. It's pretty good. Interestingly though, regardless of states, everyone can hit each other. So if you're ganking someone, you can hit your buddy accidentally. Or if you're getting ganked, you can run them into each other and stand a better chance of winning. You can also do this with NPCs. Kinda turns group fighting into a shit show, but also discourages and disincentivizes it. I kinda like it. There are 3 major bosses and a couple smaller ones. The 3 major bosses each have 3 levels, with subsequent levels unlocked through combat trials, which is PvP. All these guys both have loot and unique moves, which incentivizes you to retread and fight them regularly to get everything. So you can be a quick-handed nimble boy or a hard-hitting boy, and also a flashy boy. If you want to collect all the moves and as much gear as possible before you step into PvP, you could be playing PvE for hours. Now, the map isn't particularly large, but there's no fast travel, and again, if you want everything, you'll be retreading ground often. There are also hidden cairns with area-specific PvE gear, like my delicious frog mask, and they're hidden pretty well. I still haven't found all of them. PvP is pretty simple. You can either get into disorganized scuffles in the overworld, or semi-organized fight clubs for EXP and the fun of it, or you can enter organized PvP, 1v1s, the combat trials. From them, you earn between 1 and 3 points. Every 5 points, you gain a level. Every level, you gain what are essentially loot boxes. But don't worry, there's no money involved here. Oh god, this isn't gambling. Oh shit. Oh Jesus Christ, I would really hate for money to be involved, because then I wouldn't be able to stop myself from spending money. Holy shit, I'm so retarded. God, government, please. Please put shackles on me and on companies so they can't take advantage of me. Oh my god. Holy shit. That's a long boy. A wide boy, actually. That's a wide boy. That's a flippity flappin' very wide boy. Jesus Christ. These combat trials, while not the main or not the only draw, especially for someone like me who prefers disorganized fighting in the overworld, they are the main progression late game. You want to build a school? Combat trials. You want unobtainable loot? Combat trials. You want better PvE bosses? Combat trials. Everything revolves around combat trials after a certain point, so you need to get comfortable with them, or know how important they are going in. Absolver's community is small, so the people competing in these trials, the only people competing in these trials, are either very skilled or very awful. Very few people are in between. Another thing to consider before going in. Now, you unlock everything at Combat Trials level 60, so cumulatively, that's 300 points. That means you either have to win 100 fights, or lose 300 of them. But more likely you'll end up somewhere in between. Now, though you unlock everything at 60, there is no cap, so your Combat Trial rank can go as high as you want it, and you can get as many looty boys as you'd like. But how does the game actually play? We've gone through all the other bullshit. What happens second by second? You start by choosing between one of 3 styles. Forsaken, which is a kickboxy MMA-man, like yo boy, who has a parry, and is balanced between dexterity and strength. Windfall, which is a quick ninja, like this classy lassie, who has a dodge, and is dex and speed focused. She was really whooping my behind. This is when I first started combat trials. I'm glad I got this on tape. She was just working me like a sack of meat and was wearing almost no armor, which is kind of wild. I mean, I was wearing no armor during most of PvE just because I could, but after just a few combat trials matches I had to put armor on, but she's just beating my meat. Well, beating me like a sack of meat. Beating me like hanging meat with no armor. I don't even think I beat her once, goodness gracious. But that's what a good windfall looks like. And then you have Cult, heavy boys, focusing primarily on strength and vitality, and carrying an absorption ability. These guys are the least common, but the most interesting. I almost never see them, but when I do, they tear me to pieces. They're a mixture of hyper-defensive and hyper-offensive. Very interesting. There's also a 4th unlockable style, Stagger, based on Drunken Fist. It's interesting in that rather than a dedicated defensive ability, it has 4 directional counterattacks. Which at first sounds really cool, you know, rather than being a defensive boy, I'ma go full on staggery, woo 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 woo, offensive boy. But in practice it's unimpressive. They're just 4 extra moves, none of which are very surprising, especially once you realize which style your opponent is in. You know where they're coming from, you know what to expect. But after choosing a combat style, you build your combat deck. And this is where most of the fun lies for me. You have 4 positions, and from those positions, 1 combo and 1 secondary each. Each move individually shifts your position. For example, a move in the bottom left could move you to the bottom right, and then you could start another move which would move you up to the top left, and then another back down to the bottom right. Or you could end the combo in a completely different position and pick up another combo from there. The idea is to get your positioning rotating like a clock, so you never stop. Or maybe you do stop. Maybe your style is short and punchy, only shifting with your alternate attacks. Maybe your primary quick combos are all housed in the rear, with all moves shifting you back to your rear positions, with most of your slow, heavy-hitting, punishing moves in the front positions. Maybe you have a little bit everywhere. Maybe every single one of your alternate attacks is a low dodging move. So whatever position you're in, if you hit Y or alternate attack, you will dodge a high attack. There is so much creativity here. You can specialize or stay general. And my favorite part, you don't have to remember long extended button presses like in most fighting games. You have a primary attack and an alternate attack. You just have to remember what position you're in and what moves come from those positions. Not only does this make the technical skill floor very low, very accessible for players, but also the PvP skill ceiling extremely high. When you enter a match, you're not fighting a specific character with specific moves. You're fighting a total stranger with an unknown style in an unknown deck. You may recognize the moves, but you don't know in which order or from where they're coming. This is extremely fascinating to play, because each fight is more a competitive puzzle. Who can figure out the other's deck first, and how to deal with it? And if the other figures yours out first, how to trick and counter them using feints and unexpected combos. And outside combat, how to actually structure your own deck. For example, fast moves are very popular right now, but most fast moves are high attacks, meaning dodge low attacks or wide sweeping charge attacks would be very effective. But at the same time, if you only use those and enter a match against a stagger opponent or anyone with charge breaks, you're screwed. You have to find a balance. Or not, if you're very clever. Again, if you don't show all your cards immediately, your opponent will have no idea what you're doing. It's more a thinking fighter than a twitch fighter. Although technical skill is necessary, problem-solving trumps. Now, you unlock more moves by fighting and winning. While you can learn these in multiplayer, it's far safer and more sure to learn from NPCs. You learn the other styles in a similar fashion. Rather than learning them from NPCs, you join player or NPC created schools based in those styles, equip the styles, then use the styles and win fights. You can join these schools whenever, but you create them at Trials rank 50. Like I said before, they are based in whatever style the creator decides. But not only that, you're given a school-specific deck created by the school's creator. This is a great way to coordinate, share tactics, and try moves you don't have, or bequeath moves to younger players. Ooh, man. It is early in the morning. God, I'm just trying to make a review. Oh, Jesus Christ, you can tell it's early in the morning because I said bequeath. And by God, I'm leaving it in the video. That's how you know, boys. But really, at Absolver's core, that's all you're doing. Crafting decks and fighting. Learning and bequeathing. Learning and bequeathing. Learning and bequeathing, boys, that's what we do here on Skimmerlit, at Skimmerlit. Skimmerlit. I bequeath to you a kick-ass review. It's not really that kick-ass of a review. I'm very tired. My throat is sore. But the devs have said for certain private 1v1s and team 3v3s are happening. Right now, combat trials are only 1v1s. That will certainly change. Hopefully in the future we'll have more areas. They have expressed interest in making more styles and moves. So let's hope for it. But even as all that stands, it's a pretty steep price. It's a pretty steep price, boys, but it's worth it, in my opinion. In my book, you open the big book of Skimmerlit, and it says, hey, Absolver's worth the money. And it goes on sale pretty often for around 20 bucks. In fact, I'm making this during the autumn sale. It's 20 bucks right now. It's more than worth it at that price. At $30, you'd have to really like PvP, but $20, great price. Can't recommend it enough. But that's about where the solid review, the good review, ends. Well, it probably already ended after I dropped the bequeath bomb. It's 3 in the morning, boys. I just want to talk about this game a little bit, and I'm feeling it. It reminds me a lot of Dark Souls in the best ways. It's the Dark Souls of fighting games, obviously. In Dark Souls, it's all about problem solving. You approach a fight, you see a guy using a rapier, wearing Wanderer's coat, and has the wolf ring. Maybe some pyromancy or sorcery or something. And you look at him and you try to figure out what he is, what he's doing, what he's going to do, and how you can deal with it with what you have. That's exactly how you play Absolver. But instead of gear and weapons, you have styles and decks. Which is more interesting to me, surprisingly. I mean, Dark Souls is my favorite dueling game ever. Absolver is more exciting because you don't know what your opponent is coming at you with. Unlike Dark Souls, though, technical skill ultimately matters more here because Absolver is a dedicated fighting game, not just an RPG. So you aren't leveling your equipment, you aren't spending tons of time working out builds and precise stats. Which honestly I kind of appreciate. Although you can't sink into PvE after you get your ass whooped here, you also aren't grinding to get to PvP level like you would in Dark Souls. It doesn't take me 8 to 12 hours to find success in Absolver. You can knock out all the PvE stuff in 4 hours and have enough moves to get by. And the way the world is set up reminds me a lot of Dark Souls too. Everything is connected. All the levels fold in on one another. And they're gorgeous. All are great for dueling. That's why I said earlier, combat trials are necessary, but not the main draw, especially for me. I much prefer wandering these gorgeous levels and picking fights with Randys. Starting up impromptu fight clubs, showing off, and going where time takes us. It reminds me much of dueling in the Berg, really. You know, running into random people, just out and about, seeing what they're doing, messing with them, having some fights, and then moving on, or organizing something larger. It's very, very cool, very flowing. It captures the Dark Souls dueling experience better than any of the sequels, or imitators. It scratches an itch I've suppressed for years because I thought nothing would ever quite capture it. Nothing would ever quite scratch that itch ever again quite like Dark Souls did, and yet here this game is, just kind of doing it. It's great. I love it. Combat trials get me all shaky and stressed out, and I wanted to shout earlier, but, you know, I'll deal with it. I don't mind putting up with this for the overworld. You know, it's great. I love it so much. And that's why I say this price tag doesn't bother me much, because I want to incentivize these developers to make more. I'll pay premium prices for more of this. This is voting with your wallet positively. Plus, when 3v3s happen, combat trials won't be stressful at all. Everything is better with friends. I already plan on making a Froggy Boys school for boxing frog boys in frog masks boxing, which is going to be nice. It's going to be very nice. And the community is pretty great. It's again, very Souls-like. You have a mixture of Reddit faggots who are bowing constantly, very supportive, assholes BMing, dumbasses role-playing. It's great. It is so... God. It is so severely autistic and soulful, man. No pun intended. Heartfelt. I love these guys. Even though they beat my ass and I get anxiety before I play combat trials, I love it. But I've said I love it so many times, I think I'm going to stop. I think you get the idea. I'm a big fan of this game. I think you would be too. But that about rippity wraps this one up, boys. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. I enjoyed making the... Well, I mean, I did enjoy making this whole thing. Absolver is one of my new favorites. I always find myself going back to it. Hard to tell how structured and how boyish I ought to be when I'm making serious videos, though. That's why I cordoned off that last bit just to talk. You know, because I wanted to just talk the whole time, but you can't sell just talking. Here's a bigger question, though. When I say Rippity wraps this one up, should I say Ribbity wraps this one up? You know, the frog is the thing. I don't say Ribbity. I could say Ribbity. What do you guys think? Is that too gay? I mean, I think it's pretty fucking gay, but it might be hilarious. I don't know. I'd like your takes. Like if you enjoyed, because it helps me out a lot, or at least I think it does. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. And I'm so tired. I am so tired. Ribbity, 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 ribbity. We're just gonna ribbity wrap this up right now. Thanks again for watching, everybody. We have a lot of fun on this channel. We have so much fun on this channel that, man, you could take a table and unfurl it and stack it so high with fun you could have a big old Thanksgiving dinner with it. That's how much fun we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.